just before Bill Kelly, my mentor was Sid Field in the mid-'80s. I was working as a waiter in New York, and I heard about a workshop he was offering at the Maine Rockport School of Film and Photography. And I saw his book, and someone was talking about it, and I was teaching myself how to write screenplays, and suddenly here was a guru who actually had a method. And that method involved a so-called formula, which is Aristotelian in nature, and could be quantified, could be put down on paper, and had page numbers, where the inciting incident happened on page 10, and the first act turning point between page 23 and 25, and the middle of the film, I guess page 60 in those days, and then page 85 to 90 was the second act turning point, and somewhere in there he had pinches. Sid, bless his heart, used to have pinches. He'd call them pinches at page 45 and page, I think, 65 or 70. And when you get to Hitchcock, he just talks about a movie has to have 13 bumps. What excited me about Sid Field is suddenly he would identify specifics with a name that I could then say, yes, that is what it was, meaning inciting incident. That it should happen in the first 10 pages. That it should be something. That it should be a hook. That it should be a catalyst. That it should be the reason that the story is being told in a certain way. Or why I'm sitting here in the theater. This is why I'm here. For that. I don't know where it's going to go yet. So that's a very specific thing that doesn't sound like much now, but was a revelation then. And certainly has been a revelation probably to every screenwriting student whom I taught, if they hadn't had much experience with screenwriting. And let me tell you, that can be transferred over. I've talked to my students who I say, well, you'll go on and be a lawyer maybe, but when you prepare your address to the jury, you're going to have a really good sense of an inciting incident. What happened in the 80s is that the executives started to read Sid Field's book. You'd go into meetings, and they would stop you and they'd say, well, on page 22, it was the first act turning point. That should have been page 25. And suddenly they would feel like they possessed some knowledge. Because we are mysterious creatures, we writers, artists. We aren't quantifiable. We don't fit. I'm just thinking of that Edgar Allan Poe quote, I want to write as mysterious as a cat. I mean, you can't quantify a cat and what a cat does and who we are and the stories we want to tell. But suddenly the executives had this book, and the book said that Act 2 turning point, climax, happens on page 85. So why didn't it happen in your script on page 85? There could be a meaning about that. There could be notes. Somebody could justify their job to the person above them. Look, page 85, there was no second act turning point. There's a real problem with this script, right? And when it was suddenly on page 85, no matter what kind of crap was in that movie, well, all the turning points are great. Let's go ahead and make this movie, you know. So the danger was that formula in a business where nobody knows anything, to have anything to grasp onto, allowed people to A, justify their jobs, and B, have a way of saying after the fact, well, we did everything right. This should have worked. And this is as old as the hills. I'm sure it goes back to Greek tragedy. There must have been Greek producers who had to produce those Greek tragedies. There had to be some people who had to roll the dice on production, certainly in Shakespeare's time. I absolutely felt like a monster has been created. A monster. But I would do it when I would go on dates and I would be sitting with a date in a movie theater. I'd say, it's 22 minutes. Something really big's going to happen in 2 minutes. Because it would be predictable. And yes, in the 80s especially, you would know right away when those things would happen. You could predict in advance in the movie at what time something was going to happen. The movie started at 9:10. At 9:20, oh, there's the inciting incident. See? How did you know that?